It's funny, the sound a life makes when it ends. Not a person's life. A way of life. Mine ended at 11:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, with the turn of a key in a lock. My key. In my front door. Except it wasn't my door anymore. And the house behind it wasn't my home. It was just a building full of things that belonged to a ghost. The ghost of the person I used to be. For 28 years, I lived in that house. For 28 years, my mother's voice was the soundtrack of my life. Maya, be quiet, your brother is studying. Maya, that's not for you. Maya, don't be difficult. My name wasn't a call to dinner. It was a warning. A correction. And my brother, Alex, his needs were the compass that guided every decision in our house. If Alex was cold, I gave him my blanket. If Alex wanted the last piece of cake, my mother would smile and say, "Be a good sister, Maya. Let him have it." I became an expert in making myself small. Invisible. I thought if I took up less space, maybe one day, they'd see the space I left and wonder what was missing. They never wondered. The day I left, my phone blew up. 14 calls. All from her. The last voicemail. I've kept it. I'll let you hear it. Maya, for heaven's sake, where is your brother's blue blazer? The one from Italy. He has his donor dinner tonight and he can't find it. Did you move it? Call me back. This is irresponsible. 14 calls. Not to ask if I was safe. If I was okay. To ask about a blazer. That was the moment the last tiny thread, the one that still connected my heart to hers, it snapped. Quietly. Like a thread of spider silk. You don't hear it break. You just realize you're finally, completely free. But freedom, it's just an empty room. It doesn't tell you what to put in it. I had to decide that for myself. And my decision started with a single piece of paper. Did you have a blazer moment? A time you realized you just didn't matter to your family? Share it below. We sat in Lawyer Brennan's office. Mahogany walls. Thick carpet that swallowed sound. It felt like we were sitting inside a coffin. My father's coffin. My mother, in black Chanel, clutching a tissue she never used. Alex, already looking bored, scrolling on his phone under the table. And me, trying to keep my hands from shaking. My father and I, we weren't close. But sometimes, late at night, I'd find him in his study. He'd look up from his ledgers, his eyes tired. He'd say, "You have a good head on your shoulders, Maya." It was the closest thing to praise I ever got. I think a part of me hoped. A foolish, childish part. Lawyer Brennan cleared his throat. His voice was dry as the paper in his hands. I, Robert James Ellis, being of sound mind, do hereby bequeath my entire estate, including the primary residence at 1142, Crestview Lane, my controlling interest in Ellis Industries, and my investment portfolio, to my son, Alexander James Ellis, to steward and manage for the family. There was a pause. A long one. To my wife, Cynthia, I leave our joint assets and the summer house, as previously discussed. Another pause. My mother nodded, a tight, satisfied little motion. And to my daughter, Maya, I leave the sum of $50,000 and my personal library of books. $50,000. And books. In an estate worth over $12 million. The air left the room. But not in a gasp. It left in a slow, cold leak until I was sitting in a vacuum. I could see Lawyer Brennan's mouth moving, explaining tax implications for Alex, but I heard nothing. Just a high-pitched whine in my ears. My mother reached over and patted my hand. Her skin was cool. Now, Maya, don't make a scene. You have your own career. You're so independent. Alex needs the security. He's going to carry on the family name. It's what your father wanted. I looked at Alex. He'd finally put his phone down. He wasn't smiling triumphantly. He just looked, accepting. As if the sun had risen in the east and gravity still worked. It was his birthright. His due. That was the worst part. The quiet, absolute certainty of it all. My erasure wasn't an accident. It was the plan. Signed, sealed, and delivered by my own father. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I did something far more dangerous. I smiled. I turned to Alex and I smiled. "Congratulations," I said. My voice didn't even crack. And in that moment, as I formed that empty, pretty smile, another will was being written. Not on paper. In my soul. My father gave Alex everything of value. But he was a short-sighted man. He forgot about the things of worth. If you were Maya, what would you have done right then? Walk out or start plotting? 3 days after the will, I went back. My mother and Alex were at the country club, discussing business strategies. I told the housekeeper I needed to collect my personal items. She let me in and left me alone. I didn't go to my old room. I went to the one place in that house that was truly mine, my father's study. Not the fancy one downstairs. The old study. The cluttered, book-lined cave in the attic he used when he wanted to be alone. The one that smelled of dust and old pipe tobacco. He'd given me the key on my 18th birthday. A place to think, he'd said. I think it was the only truly personal gift he ever gave me. In the top drawer of his battered oak desk, under a stack of old ledgers, I found it. A simple, black, hardcover notebook. No label. I opened it. It wasn't a diary. It was a map. Page after page, in my father's meticulous handwriting, was a list. Not of assets for the will, but of secrets. Account numbers for safety deposit boxes at banks I'd never heard of. The login credentials for a private, encrypted digital vault. Combinations to locks. Stock certificates for obscure, long-forgotten investments. A list of his mother's jewelry, item by item, with handwritten notes. Emerald necklace, Art Deco, real stones. Do not let Cynthia sell for cheap. This was my father's true will. The one he didn't trust to Lawyer Brennan. The one he didn't trust to Alex. My eyes landed on one entry, circled faintly in red pencil. Lakefront property, Crystal Point. Parcel hashtag 7V. Purchased in '89 with JR title in my name only. Cynthia must never know. For Maya, if she ever needs an escape. I stopped breathing. A lake house. A secret one. He left me $50,000 in the will. But in this book, he left me a fortune. Not just in money. In leverage. In truth. He knew. He knew what my mother was. What she would do. And he hid this from her. Why didn't he just tell me? Why this game? Then I understood. He was a weak man. He couldn't face her. He couldn't change the story in his lifetime. So he buried the treasure and gave me the map. A test. If I was strong enough to look. If I was smart enough to find it. The tears came then. Hot and furious. Not tears of gratitude. Tears of rage. This was his apology? This scavenger hunt for my own inheritance? Fine. If this was the game, I would play. And I would win everything. Phase 1 was digital. Using the codes from the Black Book, I accessed the vault. It wasn't just financial records. It was the family's digital soul. Scanned copies of my grandfather's original, questionable business contracts. My mother's private correspondence with a man who wasn't my father. And Alex, oh Alex. His entire senior thesis, bought from a ghostwriter. Receipts for drugs in college. Evidence of a hit-and-run fender bender he'd covered up. They'd given Alex the keys to the kingdom. But I now held the keys to the dungeon where all the skeletons were locked up. Phase 2 was tangible. The first safety deposit box, in a sleepy bank 2 towns over, held my grandmother's jewelry. Just like the book said. The emeralds were breathtaking. Cold, green fire. I took them to a private buyer in the city. No questions asked. $250,000 in wired cash. The second box held the stock certificates. a company called Midwest Robotics. I almost laughed. It sounded like a joke. A quick search on my phone told me it wasn't a joke. Midwest Robotics had been acquired, just 6 months prior, by a tech giant. Those forgotten certificates were now worth $1.2 million. I was now a millionaire. And no one in my family had a clue. Phase 3 was social. And this required artistry. I didn't send the damning documents to the IRS all at once. I sent a tiny, anonymous tip about a single, suspicious deduction from 5 years ago. Just enough to trigger an audit flag. A small, bureaucratic pebble that starts an avalanche. Then I went to Alex's biggest client. I didn't go as myself. I went as a potential partner concerned about stability. Over a very expensive lunch, I let slip, with well-feigned concern, that I'd heard young Ellis was under tremendous stress since his father's passing, that the family business might be on shaky ground. A lie wrapped in a truth. The client's face changed. Doubt is a virus. And I had just infected him. A week later, the call came. It was Alex. His voice was a crackling wire of panic. Maya? Are you sitting down? Something's happening. The IRS is auditing us. Out of nowhere. And Granger Industries just put their contract on hold. Mother is having palpitations. I don't understand what's going on. I made my voice soft. Concerned. The good sister. Oh, Alex, that's terrible. It must be a coincidence. Bad luck. Father always said business cycles. It's not bad luck. It feels targeted. It feels like someone is coming for us, he said. I let the silence hang for a beat. A beautiful, perfect beat. Who would do that, Alex? We're family. I ended the call. I looked at my computer screen, at the digital vault open before me. I clicked print on a single, innocuous-looking document. The first page of Alex's plagiarized thesis. The game was no longer cold. It was warming up. And it was time to turn up the heat. Was Maya right to use the secrets she found, or did she go too far? Vote. Justified revenge, or she became the villain. They asked to meet. Demanded it, really. At the family home. My home, technically, though the deeds said Alex. The storm that night was biblical. It felt fitting. I found them in the living room, the one I'd polished and cleaned for 1,000 parties where I was just part of the staff. My mother was pacing. Alex was pouring a very large scotch. The air was thick with their fear. It smelled like ozone and expensive perfume. What do you know about this, Maya? Mom said. I didn't sit. I stood by the fireplace, my back to them, looking at the empty space where our family portrait used to hang. About what, Mother? Don't play dumb. The audit. Granger. The bank called about a lien inquiry. It's a coordinated attack, Alex said. I turned around slowly. I looked at them. Really looked. At my mother's face, twisted by anger, not love. At my brother, a scared little boy in a man's suit. And I felt nothing. No pity. No anger. Just a vast, calm emptiness. You're right, Alex. It is coordinated. I walked to the side table and placed my simple leather folder down. I opened it. I pulled out 3 documents, laying them out like a dealer laying down a winning hand. Document 1, I said, my voice clear in the silent room. The bill of sale for grandmother's emerald necklace. $250,000. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her own throat. Document 2. The transfer of ownership of 12 million shares in Midwest Robotics. Current value, approximately $1.2 million. Alex's glass stopped halfway to his lips. And document 3, I said, saving the best for last. The articles of incorporation for a new holding company, Emmy Legacy Trust, which, as of 10 o'clock this morning, completed the purchase of 42% of Ellis Industries from a panicked, cash-strapped seller who needed liquidity fast. I looked straight at Alex. That was you, brother. You sold me your birthright. At a fire sale price. The color drained from his face. My mother made a sound like a wounded animal. You thief. You viper. We took you in. We fed you. Mother screamed. You took me in? I was your daughter. The silence that followed was absolute. For the first time in my life, I had shouted back. And it had stunned her into silence. You gave Alex everything the world could see. The house. The business. The money. So I took everything else. The secrets. The history. The leverage. I own the past now. And I control the future. I picked up the folder. The IRS will find what I want them to find. Granger will come back if I ask them to. Your lives, your reputations, your precious legacy, they are now mine to manage. Or not. I walked to the door. I didn't look back. You are dead to me. You will die alone, Mother said. I opened the door. The sound of the rain roared in. I've been alone in this family since the day I was born, Mother. At least now. I'm alone in a mansion by the lake. And I walked out into the storm. The lake house was exactly as the book described. A small, cedar-shingled cottage hidden in the pines. My escape. For a week, I did nothing. I sat on the dock. I breathed. The silence here was different. It wasn't empty. It was full of the wind and the water. It was mine. But the black book sat on the coffee table. A dark star, pulling at me. My father's final mystery. I'd used its secrets, but I hadn't solved it. Why leave it like this? On the 8th night, I built a fire. I took the book and sat before the flames. I started from the beginning again, running my fingers over his handwriting. And in the very back, tucked into the leather binding, I felt it. A slight bulge. A key. A tiny brass safety deposit box key taped to a brittle slip of paper with a bank name and box number. A bank in Zurich. My heart hammered against my ribs. The final box. It took me 3 days to get to Switzerland. 3 days of my mind racing. The bank was discreet, imposing. The box was small. Inside, no jewels. No stock certificates. Just a single, old-model digital voice recorder. And a note in my father's hand. For Maya's ears only. The truth is too heavy for paper. With trembling hands, I pressed play. This is Robert. Maya, my smart, quiet girl. If you're hearing this, you found the book. I knew you would. You were always the one who saw what others missed. I have failed you. In every way a father can fail a daughter. I let your mother mold our family into her image. A shrine to Alex. I was weak. I chose peace in my house over justice for you. But this failure, it is older. Darker. Ellis Industries, it was never built on hard work and integrity, Maya. That was the story we sold. The truth started with my father. With bribes. With stolen designs. The foundation of everything we have is rotten. I spent my life trying to paint over the cracks, but the rot is in the walls. The books are a house of cards. The fortune, it's a lie, propped up by debt and secrets. I couldn't leave it to you. To saddle you with this poison thing. I had to leave it to Alex. It was the only way. He's part of the rot. He believes the story. He'll go down with the ship. The money in the books, the lake house, it's clean. It's money I made outside the business, away from your mother. It's yours. It's real. Take it. Build a real life. A true life. And when it all falls apart, and it will soon, you must be somewhere safe. Far away. And you must never, ever tell Alex what you know. He can't handle the truth. And your mother, she must never know I knew. The danger, it's not just financial, Maya. My father's partners. They are not men who forgive debts. Or loose ends. They're here. I have to go. I sat on the floor of that sterile bank vault, the cold marble leaching into my bones. The recorder slipped from my fingers. It wasn't a gift. The black book. It wasn't an apology. It was a warning. He didn't make me the heir. He made me the survivor. He fed Alex to the wolves and gave me a head start into the woods. The fortune I took, it wasn't my revenge. It was my severance package. My payment for silence. For disappearing. My mother gave Alex everything that was bright and shining and fake. And my father, in his cowardice, he gave me everything that was dark and hidden and real. The empire I tried to steal was already collapsing. The revenge I savored was on a man already condemned. I didn't win. I just escaped the blast zone. I looked at my phone, buzzing on the table. The Zurich area code was gone. It was a local number now. To the cabin. The number is unlisted. How did they get this number? The voice on my father's tape. They are not men who forgive debts. Or loose ends. I am a loose end. Do I answer it? What would you do? Answer the phone or run? And who do you think is calling Alex, mother, or the dangerous partners? The fate of part 2 is in your comments. The phone rang in the silent cabin. A sound that didn't belong. This number, it didn't exist. Not on any form. Not given to a soul. The lake house was a ghost. And I was supposed to be its ghost. But the phone rang. He said, "They are not men who forgive debts." My father's voice, trapped on that recorder, was still echoing in my bones. Was this them? Had they found the loose end? Or was it Alex? Broken, desperate, finally putting the pieces together? Or my mother, with a new weapon, a new guilt to lay at my feet? 2 phones. Ringing in unison. A private hell and my public life, colliding in the dark. My hand moved on its own. Not to the unknown number. To the known one. The one labeled Alex. I answered. "He's gone, Maya." Alex said. A cold finger traced my spine. Who's gone, Alex? Lawyer Brennan. Took a late-night swim off his balcony. 12 stories down. The police, they're saying it's consistent with suicide. Too much stress. Grieving client families. But he left a note, Maya. A single line. I can't be the keeper of the lies anymore. He was fine yesterday. He was helping me. He was helping me look into some irregularities. In the old trust funds. The ones Dad set up. The room tilted. Lawyer Brennan. The dry, papery man who read the will. The keeper of the lies. A suicide. Right as Alex started asking questions. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a cleanup. And the other phone, the unlisted one, began to ring again. Who do you think is calling the unlisted phone? The dangerous partners or someone else? Make your prediction below. I left the cabin. I couldn't stay there. The ringing was in the walls. I drove through the night, the black book and the voice recorder burning a hole in my passenger seat like radioactive cargo. Lawyer Brennan was the keeper of the lies. My father's recording was the proof. But what lies? The fake foundation of Ellis Industries? Or something else? I needed to see what Alex saw. I needed to get ahead of whatever was coming. Not for him. For me. I was a loose end. And loose ends get trimmed. Using the access codes from the black book, codes Brennan himself must have set up, I bypassed the firm's firewall. I found his digital workspace. His last open files weren't about our will. They were about a company called Pandora Holdings. A shell corporation, layers deep. And the transaction logs, they showed a systematic bleed. For over a decade, millions had been siphoned from Ellis Industries into Pandora. Not for bribes. Not for secrets. For payments. Regular, enormous, quarterly payments. Like a tax. Or protection money. The last outgoing payment was dated the day before my father died. The first missed payment was due next week. It wasn't a business. It was a feeding trough. My grandfather made a deal with the devil to build his empire. My father kept making the payments to keep it standing. And now, the bill had come due. To Alex. And Alex had no idea he was the new paymaster. He just thought he'd inherited a gold mine. He'd inherited a debt with compound interest in blood. My revenge. My beautiful, careful revenge. I had kicked a hornet's nest. By destabilizing Alex, by triggering the audit, I hadn't hurt him. I had alerted the creditors that the money stream might dry up. I hadn't taken everything from my brother. I had signed his death warrant. And maybe my own. I checked into a hotel under a fake name, paid for with the emerald money. The clean money. For 3 days, I watched the news. I watched the business channels. Ellis Industries stock was tanking. Scandal brewing, the ticker said. IRS probe widens. Then, the headline, Ellis heir hospitalized after apparent breakdown. A photo of Alex, pale and hollow-eyed, being wheeled into an ambulance. My mother, her face a mask of theatrical grief, behind him. The article quoted family friends, saying the pressure of the scandal and the loss of his father had been too much. I knew the truth. The pressure wasn't from the scandal. It was from the phone call he must have received. The call about the missed payment. My blood froze. No one knew I was here. The knock came again. I didn't move. I couldn't breathe. A white envelope slid silently under the door. Then, the sound of quiet footsteps walking away. Inside, no letter. Just a single, glossy black business card. No name. No title. Just a phone number, embossed in silver. And a handwritten note on the back in elegant, masculine script. A deal made in shadow must be honored in the light. Or the light goes out. Let's discuss your father's balance. Tomorrow. Noon. The Botanical Gardens. Orchid Room. Come alone. It wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. Should Maya go to the meeting or run? What's the smarter move? The Orchid Room was a jungle of strange, beautiful colors. It felt like another planet. And standing in the center of it, looking utterly normal, was a man. He was in his late 60s. Immaculately dressed in a casual linen suit. He was gently misting a delicate purple orchid with a small silver spray bottle. He looked like a retired professor. Not a monster. He didn't look up as I approached. The Dendrobium amethystoglossum. The man said. Rare. Requires precise conditions. Too much water, it rots. Too little, it withers. A delicate balance. Much like arrangements between men. He finally turned. His eyes were pale blue, intelligent, and utterly devoid of warmth. They were the eyes of a shark that learned to wear a suit. You must be Maya. You look like your father. Around the eyes. He had anxious eyes. You knew my father. I knew his obligations. Your grandfather was a visionary. He understood that to build a great thing, you sometimes need partners with particular skills. We provided the skills. He provided a share of the proceeds. A silent partnership. Your father honored it. Mostly. He set down the spray bottle. Your brother, however, seems to have forgotten the family business. Our recent outreach seems to have left him indisposed. Unreliable. What do you want? I asked. Direct. I appreciate that. I want what I am owed. The balance on your family's account is due. With your brother incapable and your mother, well, let's call her an unsecured asset. The responsibility, by the cold logic of ledgers, falls to the remaining beneficiary of Robert Ellis's estate. He looked straight at me. That's you, Maya. You took everything else. You get the debt, too. The air was thick with the scent of flowers, but all I could smell was ozone, the charge before a strike. I have money. The jewelry. The stocks. The pocket change your father hid from us. We know about it. We let you have it. A signing bonus. The debt is 10 times that. Your father's last creative accounting trick was trying to hide the true sum. It didn't work. He took a step closer. We are not unreasonable. We are businessmen. Your brother's company is now a sinking ship, attracting sharks, the legal kind. It is of limited value to us. But you are resourceful. You are ruthless. You orchestrated your little family coup quite elegantly. We admire skill. Here is our new deal. You will become the CEO of Ellis Industries. You will stabilize it. You will use your cleverness to make it profitable again. And you will funnel 20% of all net profits, quarterly, to an account we will provide. You will be our new partner. And if I say no? The man's friendly facade didn't slip, but his eyes went dead flat. Then the light goes out. For Alex. For your mother. And for the loose end who thought she could steal from us and vanish. A tragic triple suicide, grief-stricken over the family's collapse. The papers will eat it up. He picked up his spray bottle and turned back to his orchid. You have 48 hours to decide. The board of Ellis Industries will receive a mysterious, compelling proxy fight endorsement for your leadership tomorrow morning. Either you walk in and take the throne, or we burn the castle down with everyone in it. He didn't say goodbye. He just left me there, surrounded by all those beautiful, fragile, expensive things that would die if the balance wasn't perfect. 47 hours later, I walked into the headquarters of Ellis Industries. The press was outside, a screaming wall of flashes. Prodigal daughter returns to save empire, the headlines would read. The boardroom was full of suspicious, weary men who'd watched their life's work crumble. Alex's empty chair at the head of the table looked like a throne of bones. My mother was there. Dressed in black, she looked at me with pure, undiluted hatred. She knew I had somehow caused this. She just didn't know how. The vote was unanimous. I was now the CEO. I stood behind the desk. The same desk where my father made his desperate recordings. I had won. I had taken everything. The house, the business, the legacy. And I had gotten exactly what I'd always wanted, my mother's full, undivided attention. My brother's total dependence. I was the center of the family universe. It was a prison. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Welcome to the partnership. First payment due in 90 days. Don't disappoint us. I tapped it. A news video showed my mother, surrounded by reporters outside the building. She was crying, but her voice was strong, clear, and perfectly crafted. So grateful my daughter has stepped up in this crisis. We are a family. We stick together. And we will clear my husband's good name. I will be by her side every step of the way, advising her to ensure my son's legacy is protected. Of course, she wouldn't let go. She would embed herself here in my new prison, watching my every move. To protect Alex's legacy. To control me. So here I am, the queen of a ruined kingdom. My subjects are a broken brother, a venomous mother, and a shadowy partner who owns my soul. The crown on my head is made of thorns and debt and lies. I took everything else. But the one thing I can never take is my own freedom. My father's last gift wasn't the money. It wasn't the warning. It was the blueprint. He showed me how to hide things in plain sight. How to keep 2 sets of books. One for the world. One for the truth. The man in the orchid room thinks he owns me. He thinks he's the predator. But he made one mistake. He taught the ghost how to fight back. What should Maya's first move be as CEO? Play along with the partners, or start secretly plotting against them? How does she break free? The most liked comment decides her strategy for part 3. Day 1 as CEO. I sat in my father's leather chair. It still held the ghost of his shape, the imprint of his fear. On the desk, 3 phones. The silver one for the board. The black one for my mother, who'd already called 7 times. And the burner phone, tucked in the drawer, with a single number saved as Orchid. My kingdom was a graveyard. Ellis Industries wasn't just crumbling. It was hollow. A beautiful facade with termites chewing through every beam. The debt to the partners was the least of its problems. Miss Ellis? Your 10 o'clock is here. A Mr. Sterling. He says he's your new financial liaison. Of course. They hadn't waited 90 days. They'd sent a babysitter. My own personal shadow. Mr. Sterling was younger than I expected. Sharp suit, sharper eyes that scanned the room like a surveillance camera. He didn't smile. Consider me a resource. I'm here to ensure your transition is smooth and profitable. I'll need full access. All accounts. All projections. Daily. My mother has the signatory power on several legacy accounts. She'll need to approve. We've already spoken with Mrs. Ellis. She's been most accommodating. She understands the need for stability. A cold trickle of dread. They'd gotten to her. Of course they had. They'd offered her the one thing she wanted more than money, control over me. They'd made her their inside watchman. The game was no longer me versus my family. It was me versus everyone. And the first move had to be perfect. How does Maya play this? Should she appear weak to Sterling or push back immediately? I worked until the city outside was a constellation of lonely lights. Sterling's full access meant I had to hide my real work in plain sight. I created a dummy server, a mirrored set of books labeled Historical Tax Analysis. My real project was called Project Phoenix. I wasn't just looking for profit. I was looking for a weapon. And on the third night, buried in encrypted payroll files from my grandfather's era, I found a name. Eleanor Vance. Chief Accountant, 1975 to 1982. Fired abruptly. Severance package was suspiciously large. A hush money payment. A deeper search found her. Alive. 84 years old. Living in a modest retirement community 2 hours away. I told Sterling I was visiting a distressed manufacturing plant. I told my mother I was meeting with lawyers. I told no one where I was really going. Eleanor Vance sat in her sunroom, surrounded by orchids. Her eyes, clouded by cataracts, were still sharp. She knew why I'd come before I said a word. I wondered if a Robert would ever come. You have his chin. The stubborn one. What did you see, Eleanor? I saw the birth of a monster. Your grandfather, James, he was a charming man. A visionary. And he was in over his head. The partners, they weren't investors. They were loan sharks with better suits. They gave him the capital to corner the market, to crush his competitors through accidents and coincidences. She leaned forward, her voice dropping. The original deal wasn't for a share of profits. It was for a 51% silent ownership. Your grandfather double-crossed them. He cooked the books, created shell companies to hide the true ownership. He gave them payments, but never the stake they were owed. He thought he was smarter. My blood ran cold. It wasn't a debt. It was an ownership dispute. My grandfather had stolen from them. My father was paying the thief's ransom. And now they wanted it all back, with interest. I have something for you. I kept a copy. The only true ledger. The one that shows what belongs to them, and what was built on the lie. She handed me a faded, yellowed notebook. The third ledger. It's not a weapon to use. It's a bomb. If you light the fuse, it burns down everything. Including you. They will never let this go public. Why give it to me? Because you look like a girl who's finally ready to burn it all down. The third ledger was a revelation. It listed assets, numbered bank accounts in Switzerland and the Cayman Islands, assets the partners never knew existed. My grandfather's secret stash skimmed from their skim. It was also a death sentence. If the partners knew about it, they'd take it. And then take everything else for the trouble. I couldn't use it to attack. I had to use it as bait. But I needed a distraction. Something so big, so public, it would draw every eye while I moved the real pieces. My mother provided the perfect opportunity. I've solved the liquidity problem. Mom said, the board will love it. We're selling the flagship manufacturing division to Brandt Corporation. Clean cash infusion. Sterling agrees it's smart. The flagship division. It was the only part of the company still innovating, still growing. Selling it was like selling the engine to pay for the gas. It was a suicide pill. And Sterling agreed because bleeding the company dry made it more dependent on the partners' mercy. She was helping them strangle my kingdom. No, you don't have a choice, Mom said. I still hold proxy votes from Alex's shares. The board will listen to me. Then I'll give the board a better story. I picked up the silver phone. Call an emergency board meeting for tonight. And alert the press. Tell them Ellis Industries is announcing a radical new vision. I looked at my mother at the shock on her face. You wanted me to be the CEO? Watch me work. What should Maya's radical new vision be? A fake rescue plan or something riskier? I stood before the board, with my mother glowering at one end and Mr. Sterling observing silently from the back wall. Cameras were set up in the corner. A live feed for the business networks. Gentlemen, we are not selling our crown jewels. We are going to give them away. The room erupted. My mother's face was a masterpiece of fury. We will spin off the flagship division as an independent, employee-owned trust. We will give every worker shares. We will open the books and invite a federal sustainability audit to become a model of transparency. That's insane. You'll crater the stock value, said the board members. For a quarter. Then, we'll become the most famous redemption story in American business. The brand value, the public goodwill, the government incentives will triple our long-term worth. This isn't a liquidation. It's a calculated rebirth. And it's the only way to save the name Ellis from the mud. I locked eyes with Sterling. He was stone-faced, but I saw a flicker of confusion. This move didn't make sense for someone trying to squeeze out quick cash. It was the move of a true believer. A pawn sacrificing its queen for a moral victory. He didn't understand. The public move wasn't the real play. It was the sleight of hand. While they were all watching the grand, noisy gesture of giving away the division, I would be quietly using the accounts from the third ledger to do the one thing they'd never expect. I would start buying their debt. Using the encrypted accounts from the third ledger, accounts that existed outside the Ellis books, outside the partner's site, I entered a shadow world. Dark pools. Cryptic message boards. Through intermediaries who asked no questions, I began to search. The partner's operation, Pandora Holdings, wasn't a monolith. It was a syndicate. And syndicates have weaker links. Junior partners. Disgruntled heirs. People who might want to cash out a toxic, decades-old debt from a dying company. It took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of my public redemption plan collapsing in the press, of the stock plummeting, of my mother screaming daily, of Sterling's silent pressure growing. Then I found him. A broker in Lisbon. He had a client. The client owned 19% of the Ellis family debt. He wanted to sell. He thought it was worthless paper from a bankrupt family. He had no idea who was buying. Seller accepts your offer. 3.2 million. Funds must be clean. Broker said. 3.2 million. Almost all of my clean emerald and stock money. To buy a fraction of a debt that was strangling me. It was the best investment I would ever make. Because I wasn't buying it to pay it. I was buying it to understand it. The transaction trail would lead me to other sellers. To the structure of Pandora. To its weaknesses. I was no longer a debtor. I was becoming a shareholder in my own destruction. I went to see Alex. The breakdown had left him gaunt, sedated. A shell and a silk pajama set my mother had brought. He looked at me, his eyes foggy with medication. You took it all. Why are you here? To gloat? No, Alex. I'm here because you're the only one who might understand. They came for you, didn't they? The men who called about Dad's debt. His eyes cleared for a second, sharp with fear. They said they'd take my hands. That they'd make me watch while they know things, Maya. Private things. They're in the walls. He was broken. But in his brokenness, he gave me a piece of the puzzle. There in the walls. Not a metaphor. He was paranoid, sure. But what if he meant it literally? What if the partners had eyes inside the company beyond Sterling? Someone in I.T? Security? My heart stopped. They'd found Eleanor. They were sending me a message. The burner phone in my pocket vibrated. The Orchid number. Yes, I answered. Your public spectacle is entertaining, Maya. But the first payment is due in 60 days. The clock is no longer ticking. It is pounding. Do not mistake our patience for permission to be clever. The old woman is a warning. The next one will be your brother. Or your mother. We will make you pick which one we break first. I looked at Alex, trembling in his bed. I thought of my mother, so blinded by her need to control me she couldn't see the real chains around us all. I had the third ledger. I had a piece of their debt. I had a plan. But they had my family. And they knew I had one fatal human weakness. I wasn't the ruthless ghost I thought I was. The game had changed. It was no longer about winning a company. It was about who I was willing to sacrifice to be free. Should Maya use the third ledger to try to save her family, even after all they did? Or should she let them fall to save herself? What is the right move? Your most liked answer will shape part 4. The man in the orchid garden gave me an impossible choice. Which family member do I let them break? My broken brother, who never saw me. Or my vicious mother, who made sure he never had to. For 3 days, I stared at the third ledger. The proof that could burn their empire down. I traced the lines of my grandfather's theft, my father's fear. This ledger wasn't my weapon. It was my inheritance. The only true thing my family ever gave me, the instinct to survive, no matter the cost. But survival had a new shape now. It wasn't about running. Or even winning. It was about redefining the game. I took the third ledger. I didn't go to the police. Or the press. I went to the one person who understood the value of secrets better than anyone. Arthur Finch. My father's oldest, most discreet rival. A man who had spent 40 years trying to tear Ellis Industries apart. His office was all dark wood and silence. Maya Ellis. I've been reading about your philanthropic collapse. It's a bold way to ruin your family's company. I almost admire it. He said. I'm not here to ruin it. I'm here to give it to you. I said. I placed the third ledger on his desk. This proves that 51% of Ellis Industries was never legally ours to own. The true owners are a syndicate called Pandora. My grandfather stole it. My father paid them to look the other way. The debt isn't money. It's ownership. And why give this to me? Arthur Finch said. Because you can do what I can't. You can launch a hostile takeover bid, citing this ledger as evidence of our fraudulent ownership. You can tie Ellis Industries up in courts for years. You can make it the most toxic, litigious, radioactive asset on Earth. Finch stared at me, understanding dawning. You want me to make it worthless to them. So they'll abandon their claim. I want you to be the public monster. The corporate raider. Draw all their fire. While you're fighting them in the light of day, you'll be fighting them in the dark. With the piece of their debt you bought. Finch said. I'll be a fellow creditor. A shareholder in my own family's destruction. With a seat at their table. Finch picked up the ledger. It was the crown he'd coveted for a lifetime. And what do you want for this gift? 2 things. First, my mother and brother are placed under your personal, anonymous security detail the moment the lawsuit is filed. They disappear into protection. You have the resources. And the second? When it's over, you give me back the company. Cleansed. Free of them. And you take a 10% stake as your fee. He laughed, a dry, rustling sound. You are your grandfather's granddaughter. You're betting everything on a double cross of professional double-crossers. I'm betting they're predictable. They understand greed. They understand force. They don't understand a sacrifice play. I was betting my family's legacy and my freedom on the one move they'd never see coming. Surrender. Is Maya's deal with Finch a brilliant strategy or a disastrous mistake? Would you have trusted the rival? It took Finch 72 hours. The headline hit like a financial earthquake. Finch Capital launches hostile bid for Ellis, alleges fraudulent foundation. The article quoted newly discovered evidence of historical ownership fraud. It didn't name Pandora. Not yet. But the shadow was now cast. The reaction was instant. Ellis stock was halted. Regulatory probes were announced. My phone exploded, the board, the press, my mother. Asset extraction initiated. Package A and B secured. Finch's signal. My mother and Alex were now ghosts, hidden in a safe house on his estate. They thought they'd been kidnapped. They had no idea I was their kidnapper. Now, for my role. I went to see Sterling. He was in my office, watching the news, his face a mask of cold fury. You've triggered a war you can't possibly win. You've made the asset valueless. No. I've revealed the board. Now, let's talk about the new game. I have a proposal for your partners. I opened the briefcase. Inside were two things. 1. The notarized documentation proving my purchase of 19% of the Ellis debt. 2. A signed power of attorney giving me authority over Alex's seized shares. As of today, I am no longer the CEO of a company you claim to own. I am a major debt holder in a bankrupt estate and the controller of its largest remaining equity block. I am, effectively, your new business partner inside the chaos. His eyes flickered. Confusion. Then, calculation. Finch is your problem now. He's the one attacking your ownership in open court. My proposal. You support me to be the court-appointed receiver of Ellis Industries during the litigation. I will use my position to slow-walk Finch's case, bury discovery in bureaucracy, and preserve every asset that can be quietly diverted. To you. And in return, you call off your threats to my family. Permanently. And when this is over, you give me a clean exit, a new identity, and a percentage of what we salvage. I've seen how this ends. I want off the ride with my skin intact. I was speaking his language now. Not defiance. Not fear. Cold, transactional betrayal. I'll take the offer to my principals. You may just be more useful than we thought. He left. I sat in the silent office, the taste of ash in my mouth. I had just offered to become my family's Judas, to help dismantle their legacy piece by piece, in exchange for a parachute. The hook was set. Now I had to make them swallow it. The meeting was in a place where money was older than God. I was escorted to a private dining room. 3 men sat there. The man from the orchid garden. A wiry, silent man with scarred knuckles. And between them, the obvious power, a woman in her 70s, with elegant silver hair and eyes like polished flint. Mrs. P., I said. Maya, dear. Sit. Sterling says you've seen the light. And the exit sign. I've seen the fire. And I don't want to burn. Your grandfather did have a flair for the dramatic. And for theft. You propose to help us, reclaim what's ours from the mess your rival is making. She said. I propose to be your scalpel. Not your hammer. Finch will be looking for hammers. I can move assets he'll never find. Starting with the R&D patents. They're not tied to the physical company. I can transfer them to a shell you control before the courts freeze everything. And your cut? 10% of the net recovered value. And the safety of my family as a sign of good faith. Mrs. P sipped her tea. The silence stretched. We accept. But faith requires a deposit. A show of commitment. You will transfer the first asset, the neurointerface patent portfolio, by end of day tomorrow. Then we will relocate your mother and brother to a facility we control. For their own protection, of course. Once the task is complete, they will be returned to you and you will receive your new life. My blood turned to ice. They were calling my bluff. They wanted me to hand over the crown jewels first, and then they'd take my family hostage anyway. I was not becoming a partner. I was becoming a slave with a fancier title. But to refuse was death. Agreed, I said, slowly nodding my head. Wonderful. We're so glad we could come to an understanding. Maya just walked into a trap. Should she run, or does she have a countermove? I had 24 hours. I couldn't give them the patents. That would be real theft, and Finch would be destroyed. But if I didn't, my family was lost. There was only one move left. The most dangerous one. I accessed the encrypted account from the third ledger, the one I'd used to buy the debt. I initiated a transfer, but not of patents. I transferred the entire 19% stake of Ellis debt I owned to a new, untraceable digital trust. And I attached a single, encrypted message to the transaction, visible only to the ledger. The message was the names and last known locations of the other 5 major debt holders within Pandora's syndicate, gleaned from the broker in Lisbon. Then, I sent the access keys for this trust and the decryption code for the message to Arthur Finch. Finch. The attached trust contains 19% of the debt that binds Ellis. The message is a list of the other major holders. Use it. Go to them. Offer to buy their debt for pennies, using the litigation chaos as leverage. Pit them against each other. Start a war inside Pandora. While they're fighting over the crumbs, you take the whole damn cake. I was giving Finch the keys to destroy Pandora from within. I was lighting the fuse on the bomb Eleanor Vance warned me about. Then I picked up the phone. I called the unlisted number. The patent transfer is ready, but it requires a dual signature from the court receiver. Meet me at the old Ellis warehouse on the docks. Dock 7. Midnight. Bring the agreement for my family's release. We'll sign everything at once. Midnight. Don't be late. Dock 7 was a skeleton of rust and memory. The warehouse door stood open, a mouth of darkness. I stood in the circle of a single, swaying overhead light. He arrived alone. The Orchid Man. He carried a thin briefcase. You picked a dramatic spot, he said. It felt appropriate. For an ending. I handed him a tablet. The transfer authorization. It just needs your biometric signature to release. He took it, studied it. Then he looked at me. And he knew. This is a dead man's switch. You've given the ledger to Finch. You've given him a roadmap to our syndicate. The man said. He didn't sound angry. He sounded impressed. You sacrificed your entire legacy just to force us to look away from your family. That's what this is, isn't it? Not a takeover. A trade. You're offering us your company, your name, your fortune, for 2 people who never loved you. You don't get to define what they are to me. You only get the choice. Walk away from them. Or spend the next decade fighting a war on 2 fronts, against Finch and against your own partners, who will be selling their pieces out from under you. The asset you wanted is gone. All that's left is costly rubble. Is it worth the price? You called the authorities. The man said shockingly. I called a tip line. About corporate espionage at the docks. The police will be curious about you. And your biometric signature on my tablet, which I just remotely sent to the SEC as evidence of your attempt to steal intellectual property. He stared at me. For the first time, I saw a crack in his calm. Fury. This isn't over, he said. It is for me. And for them. He dropped the tablet. It shattered on the dock. He gave me one last, long look, a promise of future reckoning, then melted into the shadows, just as the first police car skidded to a halt at the dock entrance. The fallout was total. Ellis Industries was placed into federal receivership. The Finch lawsuit and the Pandora scandal merged into a front-page monster that swallowed the legacy whole. My mother and Alex were released from Finch's protection. They were given a modest annuity from what remained of the clean money. They left the country. I hear they're in Switzerland. They have not contacted me. They believe I finally self-destructed and took everything with me, just as my mother always feared I would. They are free of the debt. They are free of me. Arthur Finch, 1. He used the debt ledger to fracture Pandora. He acquired a broken Ellis Industries for a song from the receivers, merging it into his empire. He honored his deal. He wired me my 10%. More money than I could ever spend. And he gave me one more thing. A file. Delivered by hand. It was a single photograph. Taken from a security camera. It showed my father, years ago, meeting with a young, sharp-suited man on a park bench. The man was handing him a simple white envelope. My father's face was not afraid. It was grateful. On the back of the photo, in Finch's handwriting, the first payment. Not to pay them off. To hire them. Your grandfather didn't steal from them. He was one of them. Your father was trying to buy the family out. The debt was the buyout clause. He wasn't a victim, Maya. He was a partner trying to retire. And you just destroyed his life's work. The truth wasn't in the ledger. It was behind it. My father wasn't paying a ransom. He was paying off his partners to leave us a legitimate business. I had just torn that business apart and handed it to their rival. I didn't save my family's legacy. I destroyed my father's final, desperate attempt at redemption. I stood in the empty apartment. The money is in an account. The name on my passport is not my own. I have no family, no history, no enemy chasing me. I have the ultimate freedom, the freedom of being nobody. I took everything else. And I am left with absolutely nothing. Was there any other way? Did Maya's sacrifice have meaning, or did she lose everything for nothing? What would you have done differently? Share your ending below.